Welcome back, guys. Today I'm with Randall McCoy. We're going to continue on our conversation about the Hatfield McCoy feud. And Randall, you are going to finish up on the question that I asked about, is that you and Sarah in that picture of the hanging of Cot Top?
Yes, that's me and Sarah. In fact, if you'll, not only is that me and Sarah, but if you look at that photo while we're at the hanging, you'll see that there's several of those that are around us that's family and friends, and they're in attendance just to show their support for the family. If you look to the right of Sarah, the little small fella with the black gloves and the hat, black mustache, that's actually Frank Phillips, with Tolbert and Mary's children, Cora and Melvin. Off to my right hand side is Sam and Martha, my son and daughter-in-law, with their daughter, little Sarah, and Josephine's daughter, Victoria, is with little Sarah. In the back there's Bud McCoy, Nancy McCoy Phillips, her mother, the widow of Asa Harmon McCoy, Martha, Jacob McCoy's there, Big Jim McCoy, our oldest son, and the rock of our family is directly behind me and Sarah. Three of our daughters, Fanny, Adelaide, and Josephine's in attendance. They're representing their sister, Alifair. Then our other son, Floyd, he's there. Preacher Anson Polly Hatfield's daughter, Nancy, and her husband, Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy's son, Asa McCoy's there with Nancy. I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but those all gathered around me and Sarah on that day. They were showing their support and love for our children and our family.
Okay, great answer. Okay, I have a question for you. Did you ever sue Devil Ants over property or timber?
No, ma'am. I never lawed Ants Hatfield, and
Okay.
he never lawed me for timber, property, or anything else. My only court dealings with Ants Hatfield was for criminal charges of murdering mine and Sarah's children.
Okay. Do you know if Perry Klein ever sued Devil Ants, or if Devil Ants ever sued Perry Klein over property or timber?
Well, I can't say as I ever heard of either of those two being in court over timber or property.
Mm-hmm.
No, not to my knowledge, they never was. You need to understand that during the bad years of the so-called feud, newspapers, book writers would write anything in order to sell a paper. The sheriff, Mr. Klein or Perry, he was the sheriff.
Yeah.
The jailer,
That's right.
an attorney, He was a state legislator.
Mm-hmm.
That man wouldn't have had no time to be a timber or a logger.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Okay, here's another question for you. Did you ever see the photos of Devil Lance and his family holding guns and posing for pictures? Did you see that photo?
Yes, ma'am. I saw a couple photographs as such.
Uh-huh.
I saw them.
Okay, what's your thoughts on that photo and other photos?
Well, I don't think much of it.
Okay.
Sure makes a man wonder why Aunt Hatfield's boys grew up to be so violent.
Okay.
One of the very reasons I chose not to give interviews or talk to book writers and newspapers back in that day. My children, mine and Sarah's children, were killed by some of those very guns they're holding up for display and photographic purposes.
Okay, thanks for that response. Was prison camp rough?
Was my time as a POW rough?
Yes, sir.
At times, I hoped that I died in battle.
Oh, wow. Do you recall the day Aunt Hatfield left and went home?
Left. Let's call it what it was, ma'am.
Okay.
Desertion.
Okay.
He deserted the rest of the unit and took many men with him.
Okay.
I'll tell you what happened. We were in the middle of battle.
Uh-huh.
At the Battle of Pond Creek. And there was some fierce fighting, but it wasn't nothing that we couldn't have overcome if had we all stayed together and fought like we were supposed to do. I looked around and Aunt Hatfield had gathered up most of his kinfolk and others that he knew, and they took to the hills and mountains on horseback and left. They deserted what men was left. There was at least 5 in our unit murdered, slaughtered that day. And they took over 20 of us prisoners of war on that very day when he deserted. Now, had Devil Lance deserted by himself, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. But he took all those men. He took probably 16 to 20 men with him out of our unit.
Okay. After Rosanna left Johnsy, who did she go live with to have her baby?
Rosanna went to live with her Aunt Betty and Uncle Uriah
Okay.
up in Stringtown. That's where she had her baby. Named her baby after Sarah, her mother,
Right.
and Elizabeth, her Aunt Betty, Rutherford McCoy.
That makes sense.
Betty was a Rutherford before. You know, there's talk. Sometimes people try to say that the Aunt Betty was the Elizabeth that Alan was married to.
Okay. I've heard people say that.
No, she was known as Alan's Betty.
Okay.
Aunt Betty was Uriah's wife. That was the Elizabeth. Both of them was named Elizabeth.
Right.
So they named one Allen's Betty, the other ain't Betty.
So they could tell them apart.
So they could tell them apart. Her baby's buried up on the hill across from the McCoy Cemetery.
Yeah.
Where Uriah and Aunt Betty's buried.
Okay, yeah. What years did your father timber or logging business, and where was it located at? When did he timber and where was it located?
What? I don't understand the question.
Some have said your father was a timberer.
Yeah. That's you've got some bad information.
Did I? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've got some bad information, ma'am.
Okay.
My father was never in the timbering or logging business.
Okay, thanks for clearing it up.
It just didn't happen. My father was a farmer, just as most people in that day. He was a trapper.
Mm-hmm.
He trapped. He sold pelts and furs.
Mm-hmm.
He done a little bit of blacksmithing on the side.
Okay.
Nothing major. His major source of supporting our family was a farmer.
Okay.
That of a farmer.
Okay, sorry that I was misunderstood that. Okay, over the years, we have heard that Daniel's father was a timberman and lost hundreds of acres to Devillands Hatfield over timbering on his land.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you're just getting some bad information. That's just that's simply not so. My daddy was a farmer. He did a little blacksmithing, a little trapping. We grew what we ate, and we raised animals.
Right.
But he was a farmer. He was never a timberman. He never timbered on nobody, much less Aunt Hatfield.
Okay, well sorry about that one then. It's just stories, you know, you hear here and there. Okay, how about this one? How about your parents getting a divorce, in their later years? Is that true?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Okay.
They parted ways for a spell.
Yeah.
You gotta understand, my father was 85 years old. They've been married 55 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
He got senility. Real bad.
Okay.
He just quit thinking straight.
Yeah.
It was a sad time in my mother and father's life. But it wasn't nobody's fault. He just had what was known as old-timers disease.
I understand. Sorry that happened. Okay, you had mentioned Asa Harmon's wife placing her ex on her pension statement that Sheriff Basil Hatfield had presented to her. What was that the significance of?
Well, in the beginning, when Asa was first killed, you gotta understand, I was POW.
Right, you were POW.
I wasn't around. Martha wanted Aunt Hatfield and Jim Vance charged with murder.
Okay.
For murdering her husband.
Well, I don't blame her.
Asa had been discharged.
Okay.
He was a civilian. So this was murder and fell under the duties of the Pike County Sheriff to investigate and prosecute the guilty parties.
Okay.
After Sheriff Basil Hatfield convinced Martha that prosecuting anyone was not going to bring Asa back.
Right.
He was concerned about how she was going to make it with 6 kids and 1 in her belly.
Yeah.
Really, he just didn't want to prosecute his cousin, aunts, and Jim Vance.
Mm-hmm.
But he was using that for an excuse.
Wow.
He told her he'd help her get her pension
Mm-hmm.
if Asa was killed in the line of duty.
Okay.
So the sheriff convinced Martha to say that Asa was returning to active duty, and that changed it from murder to an act of war. So Ants and Jim and the others in the West Virginia Hatfield gang, they went free for murder
Wow.
once again.
Wow. Okay. Boy, bless her heart. Okay, did you know Preacher Ants Hatfield?
Did I know him?
Yeah.
I considered him my friend. Preacher Ants baptized me, Sarah, and most of our children. He married most of us, most of our children as well. There was no better man on Blackberry than Preacher Ants Hatfield. There was no better.
He sounds like he was a good guy. Okay, you did know that Preacher Ants and Devil Ants were first cousins, correct?
Oh yeah, I knew that. I knew their pappies.
Okay.
I knew Big Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I knew George Hatfield. They were brothers.
Oh.
Devil Ants and Preacher Ants was as different as their names, as different as daylight and dark. Their names suited both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no better man than Preacher Ants, and no bigger troublemaker, egotistical, narcissic man than Ants Hatfield. Pure evil, pure trouble, instigator, manipulator, troublemaker. I'll tell you.
Wow. Okay. Can you tell us, when did the actual feud begin? When did it first start?
Well, there were hard feelings from the Civil War.
Of course.
Murder of Asa Harmon. All the pig stealing and thefts.
Yeah.
But I guess the real hatred started when Ants Hatfield and his Hatfield gang of deserters and family tied my boys naked to trees and assassinated them. It was like the most ungodly thing a man could do to another man's children.
Wow. Did you once call Ants Hatfield 6 foot and 180 pounds of heck?
No, I saw that once printed in a newspaper.
Yeah.
I asked Sarah, why would they make a statement like that for? Why would I call Anderson Hatfield 6 foot tall and 180 pounds of hell?
That would be my question. That's why I'm asking.
Ants Hatfield came up to my chest. He was a very, very small statue of a fella. That's why he felt safe in numbers.
Well, his Civil War documents said he was 5'6", so...
Well, that sounds probably about right. He was a small man. Nobody with any height to him at all would claim that he was ever 6 foot tall.
Okay. Some say the pig trial of 1878, when you took West Virginia Floyd Hatfield to court for stealing your pig, started the feud. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
No, I'd have to disagree.
Okay.
That's what the papers wanted people to believe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Anne's Hatfield wanted people to believe. For the newspapers, it made for a better story.
Exactly.
You know, it was always seems fiction sells better than fact.
Sure does.
For Anne's Hatfield, he wanted to blame the fighting or hard feelings on anything except what it was in the beginning. And that is when he took off and deserted in the heat of battle, in the Civil War.
Okay.
And then to cowardly kill my brother. No, the point of no return was when our 3 boys were murdered without any court proceedings. Just outright murder. An innocent 15-year-old boy.
Wow. Your family's been through a lot.
Yeah.
Sir, did you ever hear the story about Randall Jr. being given a chance to walk away if he would just kneel down and beg the Devil Lance to let him and Devil Lance would let him live? But he told Devil Lance to go to heck instead?
I've heard that story. And from knowing my boys, that sounds a likely story. Our children were all close.
Right.
Like that. And then to think him having to watch his brothers been slaughtered.
Right.
I can see Bud saying that to Aunt Hatfield. It takes a real man with a real ego problem to kill a 15-year-old boy tied to a tree because he won't beg to live. That's what Bud was murdered for, because he wouldn't beg. Because by this time, Aunt Hatfield knew he had the wrong boy.
Wow.
But he murdered him anyway.
Aw, that is sad. Okay, because you never talked or set the record straight over the years, some have made Devil Lance out to be a hero, bigger than life. What do you think about that?
That's on me.
Yeah.
That's all on me. As I look back, that's my fault.
Okay.
But me and Sarah wanted to grieve for our boys.
Sure.
We didn't want together, our children together, holding guns for picture taking. We wanted justice in a court of law.
Okay, can you tell me about the trial of Sam and Paris McCoy after Bill Staten was killed?
There was never a trial.
Really?
It was self-defense.
Okay, but over the years, people have said there was a trial held and they were found not guilty.
Over the years, dear, they have made a murderer and a coward out to be a hero.
Okay.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but people have said a lot of things about the Hatfield McCoy's so-called feud.
Sure.
That's not correct. If there is no court documents to back it up, then it's nothing more than a fable.
Okay.
It simply didn't happen. I know a lot of Aunt's kinfolk wrote stories for newspapers and books.
That's right.
Later was stories that Aunt's himself had told them. They were nothing more than stories.
Okay.
He was a man who needed constant gratification and attention. It didn't matter to him how he got it. This is sad, but I'm telling you true as I know.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, for doing that. Have you ever heard that Frank Phillips rode with Jesse James at one time and named his two boys after Frank and Jesse?
Give me just a second.
Take your time, take your time.
Well, that's about as true as the books that say I said Devil Ants was 6 feet tall.
Oh, okay, I understand. So, what do you mean by that?
I mean, that is made up, as them saying Jim Vance served in the war.
Okay.
Frank Phillips didn't name his boys after Frank and Jesse James. He never rode with Frank and Jesse James. That was a story, a myth.
Okay.
That was made up by Ants Hatfield and the Hatfield gang. He named one boy Frank after himself.
Right.
And the other boy he named after his grandfather, Jesse Phillips, because he helped to raise Frank after his father, Billy Phillips, had been killed in the war between the states.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay. Have you heard of a New York reporter named T.C. Crawford? And he did a story on Devil Ants and his family. Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that. He sent word he'd like to talk to us before returning to New York. Seemed like a nice enough of a fella.
Okay.
But I sent word back that I appreciated his concern and respected the manner in which he contacted me, rather than just crowding me in and demanding to talk like a lot of papers and book writers would do.
Okay.
But I told him I'd prefer to do my talking in court.
That's okay.
When they arrest Ants, John C. Cap, and the other bunch of the Hatfield gang, he sent word back that he understood completely after meeting with Ants and the West Virginia Hatfields.
Okay. And there was another story where it was said that the McCoys had captured Detective Dan Cunningham and that he had escaped your grasp to live another day. Is that true?
Detective Cunningham was a friend of Frank Phillips's.
Okay.
The McCoys would have had no rhyme or reason to have captured him. Captured him for what?
Okay. I don't know. That's just a story that had been out for years.
Well, I'll tell you straight. It's a false story.
Okay.
We would have had no reason to capture Detective Cunningham.
Sure.
He was one of those attempting to arrest Ants and the Hatfield gang and bring them to justice.
Okay. Have you ever heard that Cap Hatfield was an attorney? Have you ever heard that?
I heard Cap's stepson was a lawyer of sorts,
Okay, yeah.
but Cap was not. Cap grew up hard. Ants worked his boys like a master over his slaves.
Wow.
Ants was all about what the Bible refers to as building bigger barns. They're just whatever he had, he always wanted more.
So you always wanted more?
He was never satisfied. I know Cap was a lawman in West Virginia.
Okay.
Cause his two brothers were the sheriff of Logan County a couple of times. It's funny, he was wanted in Kentucky for multiple murders, and yet served as a lawman in West Virginia. Mind juggling when you think about it.
It sure is. It's very interesting. Now, if we can, I would like to clear up another story and see if it's true or false.
Okay, what is it?
Okay. It's been said that later in life you agreed to drop charges on Dale Lance or pardon him with an agreement made by the attorney named York in Pikeville. Is that true?
That is hogwash.
Okay.
Hogwash.
Okay.
Pure hogwash. Once again, I have to refer back to what I said earlier. If there is no court documents to back it up, some of these stories, then it's just nothing more than stories or fables. It simply didn't happen. Do you think, as hard as me and Sarah worked at trying to bring Aunt's Hatfield and the West Virginia Hatfield gang to justice, that out of the blue we would say it's okay that you murdered, that you slaughtered our children? Now, go free. Does that make any sense to you?
It sure doesn't to me. I was just wondering. It's one of the stories that was out there, though. Okay. I'm just asking the questions. I'm not telling you I'm just telling you some of the stories that's been out there.
I understand.
Okay, mostly because you didn't talk back then. You understand that?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about what Devil Lance, when he was promoted to captain. Did you know anything about that?
Promoted to captain?
Devil Lance told everyone he was a captain in the Civil War.
See, I'm confused. I don't have the... What are you talking about? Told him he was promoted to captain?
Yeah, he did.
You're just joshing with me.
No.
Now, ain't you?
No, I'm serious. Devil Lance said he was a captain in the Civil War, and he had even put that on his tombstone.
Well, I've heard it all now. Aunt Hatfield didn't stay long enough in the unit to get a uniform, much less promoted to the rank of captain. He couldn't have never been captain, even if he hadn't deserted, as he couldn't read nor write, and that was a requirement to serve as a captain.
Okay, there's also been a story, excuse me, been stories that Devil Lance stole a horse from you while you were POW. What about that one?
Aunt Hatfield and the Hatfield gang stole horses, pigs, cows, chickens. They stole anything that had any value to it.
Wow.
Or would be useful to them.
Okay.
You have to understand, the Hatfield gang were no different than the James gang, the younger gang. Only they robbed banks. Where Wilm Cantrell gang and the Hatfield gang robbed individuals and wreaked havoc from just everyday citizens trying to get by. So yes, when I was released at the end of the war and come home, I found out that Ants and his gang of outlaws had stolen from me also.
Wow. Did you ever hear that Devil Lance's grandson died of malnutrition or starved to death? Have you heard that story?
No, I can't say as I did.
Okay. It was written in a book by Devil Ansel's grandson. He wrote that Captain Shepherd Hatfield, the 7-year-old son of Cap, had died of malnutrition. That they didn't have enough food to eat, so he starved. And he was living next door to his grandfather while Cap was on the run out west. Have you heard that?
No, I hadn't heard it, but that's a sad story.
Sure is.
Nothing like children. I don't know about the boy.
Right.
But I know Aunt was upset after Jim Vance was killed. And Johns and Cap, his 2 boys, they took off. They took off away from here, hiding out in Mexico, is what I always heard.
Okay.
Or that was the rumor spread throughout these parts. But that wouldn't surprise me. When we were taking the 9 men to Louisville to await their trial, Selkirk McCoy said he feared Aunt's Hatfield. If Aunt's got mad at you, there wasn't nothing doing until he got vengeance on you back. So I can see him not helping Cap's family because Cap ran out on protecting him. Cap and Jim Vance was the muscle for Aunt's. He was the instigator. He was the manipulator. But they would do his dirty work while Aunt's hid and stayed at home.
Okay. Here's another question for you, sir. Why do you think the West Virginia officials failed to extradite Aunt's back to Kentucky? Why do you think they didn't do that?
Politics.
Okay.
Pure politics.
I agree.
And payoffs. Payoffs kept Aunt Hatfield from being arrested in West Virginia. It's as simple as that. He had big political rallies where they would roast whole cows for large gatherings to impress the politicians. A lot of votes. They had a lot of votes in that family.
Some say Devil Ants was a loving man. What do you think about that?
That's not what the evidence shows. Ants was about ants. Pure and simple. What's in it for me was Ants's motto. He didn't care about his children going to jail, his uncle being killed, his brother dying in prison, nor his nephew being hung for following his orders. Aunt's Hatfield was all about Aunt's Hatfield.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, what's your thoughts on this question? One of the authors said the Devil Answers boys were just following orders from their father. Do you agree with that?
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree with that assessment. Yes.
You think they were just following orders?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. I think in the beginning, they were just respecting their father's orders.
Okay.
But as the atrocities went on, I think they resented it, but were afraid to tell him. In fear, he would kill them.
Wow. In your estimate, how many people were in attendance at the hanging of Cotton Top Hatfield?
Oh Lord, they was hundreds, maybe even thousands.
Really?
There that day, a lot of people had brung their guns. Everyone was thinking Ants and his gang was going to ride into town and jailbreak Cotton Top.
Oh wow.
But he didn't show.
Okay. What did you think about Cotton Top's confession, where he confessed to everything?
I think he was being honest in his statement.
Yeah.
But I think he was still protecting Cap as to being the one that murdered our daughter. Ants, Cap, Wall, Jim Vance, they all manipulated that boy.
Yeah, I believe you're correct on that. I totally agree with that one. Okay, one author says the McCoys never backed you on getting justice for your boys. Is that true? They never backed you?
I'm sorry. I'd have to disagree on that statement.
Okay, I thought that would be strange.
Yeah, my brothers, my brother-in-laws, their children, and especially my nephews, were on every raid I was on. I know this because I saw them. I was with them. I talked with them. My nephew Lark and brother-in-law Uriah were charged with shooting at some of the Hatfield gang. Bud McCoy, another nephew, was shot at the Battle of Grapevine, fighting next to me. I could tell you story after story of family and friends who stood by me. Curtis Smith, Philip McCoy's father-in-law, was assassinated while plowing his garden after going on one raid to West Virginia with us. A bushwhacker, no less.
Wow. Did you know Jim Vance?
Yes, I knew Jim Vance somewhat. That was before the war between the states.
Okay.
He lived in Pike County, Kentucky, a spell.
Did he?
Always seemed like a nice enough fella. I didn't see him anymore after the war started.
Okay. Did you know Hatfield died in prison?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I heard that while we were at Cotton Top's hanging. Someone told me he died in prison.
Yeah.
TB or wanting to eat or something like that. Said he had it rough, trying to adapt to prison life. He always blamed his brother, Ants, for getting him involved.
Really?
With taking our boys from the Kentucky lawman.
Wow. Okay. Did you know Devil Lance didn't even send anyone to bring his brother's body home from the prison?
No, I didn't know that. But it doesn't surprise me, as Ants Hatfield was a user. He had used Wall. He had manipulated Wall.
Okay.
There was nothing else Wall could do for him. So leave him be where he was. That was the way Ants Hatfield, that was his mentality.
Wow, he's harsh. Okay, they said Frank Phillips was a bad man and would shoot at people's feet and tell them to dance. What's your thoughts on that?
Ma'am, probably same folks that said Frank was at the hanging drunk.
Okay.
And causing a disturbance.
Right, because I thought he was a pretty good guy.
I didn't hang out with Frank. He didn't visit me and I didn't visit him.
Right.
We didn't hunt together.
Okay.
We didn't fish together.
Okay.
When Frank would summons a posse under color of Kentucky law, I was ready and willing to ride with him in pursuit of the murderers of my children.
I understand that.
I never saw anything out of the way with Frank or his actions.
Right.
If you wanted to fight, be ready. If you picked it, cause Frank wouldn't back down.
He sounds like a tough guy.
I can't fault him for that.
That's right.
He was a tough man. He was also like a Baney rooster. But unlike Ants Hatfield, Frank was not hacked. If he was running, it was usually towards the fight, not away from it. Me and Sarah will be forever indebted to Frank Phillips for coming to us in our time of loss.
Good.
Along with Mr. Perry Klein and Governor, the Honorable Governor Simon Buckner.
Yep. Oh man, that sounds awesome. Frank was one tough guy. Okay, one person said that Ellison Hatfield was the victim after being stabbed and shot at the election ground fight in 1882. What do you think about that? Them calling him being called a victim?
I call it hogwash.
Okay.
Nothing but pure hogwash.
Why do you say that?
He wasn't a victim. He was the aggressor, the instigator of the fight between him and my son Tolbert.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. My son Tolbert would fight a six-legged bull, but he had to be pushed or primed. His fight with Bad Lass was over some money owed. Bad Lass was a Blackberry Hatfield. They were drunk. They would have been back friends the very next day after they sobered up.
Right.
It was Ellison who challenged Tolbert. Try that on me. I'm the meanest man on earth. Ellison yelled.
Right.
That's a challenge. And to another drunk, it's a challenge. No, Ellison was no victim here. Randall Jr. was the victim. Seems to have been a lot of mistruths spoken and written into history. That's sad that people don't know the truth about what took place, or maybe they know the truth and just want to misrepresent it. Maybe that's on me for not speaking up before I did.
Well, yeah, that's understandable, but you're trying to set the truth straight now. So you're trying to get it out there anyway. Okay, did you ever did you ever know Jim Vance serving in the Civil War on either side? Have you ever heard of that?
No, I never heard of Jim serving in the war on either side. I know he was part of the West Virginia Hatfield gang, or what they like to call Logan Wildcats. He was Ance's right-hand man. Did a lot of stealing and looting with Ance and his gang.
Why are there not many photos of you and your family? Could you explain that?
Oh Lord, honey, we didn't waste our money on such things as photos. We needed more important things to live. You can't eat or wear a photograph.
Right.
A horse or a cow can't eat a photograph.
Right.
They need grain in the winter months. Besides, after half our children had been killed or died, it just didn't seem right to take photos.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of stuff for us to smile about.
Okay, it's been said by one author that you didn't care about Asa dying, as the family felt he was a traitor. Do you think that's accurate?
I resent that.
I don't blame you.
I resent that remark.
Sorry.
May God have mercy on whosoever who said that. That is a blatant lie. How could they say that? Asa was my brother.
Right.
One of my closer brothers I had. Maybe he felt I was the traitor for fighting for the South. We each had a choice.
That's right.
And respected the other's choice to fight for whoever we wanted to. Just as my other 5 brothers had the same choice. There were 7 of us brothers that fought. 4 for the Confederacy and 3 for the Union.
Okay. Wow, you had a lot of brothers fighting there. Okay, what's your response to this question? One author says your father was lazy.
My mother and father were two of the hardest working people
Sure.
I have ever known in my life.
Sure.
Who are these people who say these bad things about my family? And how do they know these remarks that they're making are true?
Good question.
Why would people be so cruel as to say these things about people they don't know anything about or they've never met? My parents raised 13 of us children.
I agree with you. I'm sorry, but things like that have happened over the years. I understand, though. Okay, there's one story where Devil Lance said to have killed a whole company of Union soldiers all by himself. What are your thoughts on that story?
Do you know how many soldiers are in a company, dear?
How many, sir?
There's 100 soldiers to a company.
Whoa.
So to that, I say hogwash. Hogwash. Unlike those who speak or write bad things into history, I knew Ance Hatfield. And Ance Hatfield was a coward. He ran in the heat of battle, leaving good men to fend for themselves. Some died that day, and over 20 were taken POW. This is not a man who fought man face to face, toe to toe, much less 100 men. It didn't happen.
Okay, what do you think about them putting a monument of Devil Lance Hatfield on Blackberry Creek?
They put a monument of Devil Lance Hatfield on Blackberry Creek.
Yes, sir, they did.
That must have been what made me turn over in my grave.
Okay. Why do you think Devil Lance didn't rescue Cotton Top then?
Same reason. He ran in the war.
Okay.
Same as when he ran at the Battle of Grapevine. Once you cowered out, you always going to be a coward. It was all about Ance. He was all about himself. He didn't care about his family. He didn't care about his boys, his uncle, his nephew. He only cared about himself.
Okay, I've heard that over the years too as well. Okay, there's also stories that says that Frank Phillips was drunk and arrested at Cotton Top's hanging. Is that a true statement?
Well, Frank Phillips, drunk and arrested at Cotton Top's hanging.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start, dear. I don't even know where to start. First, I would like to say that maybe there'll be court records to that.
Okay.
Maybe there'll be arrest records. How about newspaper articles? You know, the hanging of Ellison Hatfield was the biggest thing to happen in Pike County in years. The man responsible for bringing all of those men to justice is drunk and fighting at the hanging.
Right.
We're supposed to believe that.
That's
We're supposed to believe. Finally, I would say, look at the famous photo of me and Sarah at the hanging. Look to the right of Sarah. The little small fella with the black hat and the black mustache.
Okay, I've seen that.
That's Frank Phillips.
Okay, wow.
Standing next to Sarah. Does he look drunk to you?
No, he did not look drunk to me. I've seen that photo. How did you acquire all the land you had at Blackberry Fork where your cabin was burned? How did you get all that property?
Well, the first 300 acres, Sarah's father, Samuel, gave to us when we got married.
Okay.
The rest we bought over the years as we could. We wanted to do as Samuel did with us. We wanted to give property to our children one day.
Okay, I've heard this. Some people have said that if you forgave Devil Lance, that you wouldn't forgive him, but if you had, the feud would have ended, or could have ended. What about that?
Forgive a man for murdering half our family. Not just murdering, killing them in the most sadistic manner. Tying them to trees like that of a firing squad of a deserter and assassinating them, making one brother watch as the other two are riddled with bullets,
Right.
then murdering him because he won't bow to aunts and beg, then setting fire to our house and shooting more children as they run out of the fire. Forgive him. Let this happen to their family. Then ask them if they want to forgive the savage that murdered their children. You ask about the Civil War. You ask, was it over slavery? I said no. It was about individual rights of each state to govern themselves.
Right. Okay. What's your point?
Well, my point is, I want to read something that Abraham Lincoln said to a newspaper editor, Horace Greeley, in August of 1862.
Okay, go ahead.
A lot of people think, and they've always wanted to blame the Civil War on slavery.
Right.
And they said the Confederates was wanting to keep slavery. And we've said for years it wasn't about slavery. It was about each state, excuse me,
Take your time.
each state to keep their individual rights. They didn't want the federal government governing each state. So the states were breaking off. They were going to form their own union.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln told this newspaper reporter, here's Abraham Lincoln's words. See if this sounds like somebody that's worried or fighting for slavery. Lincoln said, my paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or to destroy slavery.
Wow.
If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some slaves and leaving others alone, I would also do that.
Wow.
That's President Abraham Lincoln that said that.
Very interesting.
So to all those who think the Civil War was about freeing the slaves, they are incorrect. The slaves just happened to be a pawn Lincoln was using. His goal was to keep the states as one. That was his main and only goal. It was the Union generals that decided they could use the extra manpower. So they told the slaves to join the Union and fight, and they could go free. The slaves freed themselves, but everyone is so bent on erasing history, most don't even know what the Civil War was all about.
I agree. Okay, did you know that Devil Lance and Cap Hatfield both belong to the Ku Klux Klan? when it was first organized, helping to bring it to West Virginia in the late 1860s and the early 1870s. Did you know about that?
Yes, I was aware of that.
Okay.
Like I've stated many times, Aunts Hatfield wanted to be a part of anything or group that had numbers to it. He felt protected as long as they were large in numbers.
Oh, wow.
At the time, it was called Ku Kluxing or clanning.
Okay.
That's what's on the court records.
Oh, really? So there are court records. Cool. Okay. What did you mean by numbers? I've heard you say that several times during our talks. What did you mean?
Numbers means people, more men.
Okay.
Aunts Hatfield liked to outnumber his prey.
Okay.
20 to 1 was what Aunts Hatfield would call even odds.
Really? Wow. Okay. I have a question for you. Did you belong to any organization, clubs, or clans?
No, ma'am, not me. My oldest son, Jim, and his son were both Masons.
Okay.
I was invited to join, but I just never got around to it.
Okay. All right, Mr. McCoy, I know that you're probably tired, so we're going to conclude this for now. And if I have any other questions, can I contact you again later?
Sure you can, and I may not have spoken up in the past, but I'm speaking up now, ain't I?
You're doing a great job, sir. Keep it up.
I hope people understand and realize that I probably should have talked
Sure.
before all these rumors got started over the years.
Right.
But I just didn't feel the need to at the time.
Well, you had a lot going on, so
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Guys, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Randall McCoy.